what is not changing. And we've seen many research, especially coming from the fields of marketing and branding, that the biggest challenge for many organizations is to understand what is temporary and what is permanent. And we touched upon that already in the previous questions, but tell me what is changing and what not?
Yeah, very interesting and important question, of course. And we don't have the answer for sure, but if we look to science, so according to science, people don't change fast at all. We had dozens of disruptive events before in, let's say, the last 200,000 years. And those events were much worse than COVID, much more deadlier, for example. So I think that's very important to mention. And yes, of course, COVID has big impact, and it will have impact for years. And yes, it does change some current behavior now as we need to adapt to, let's say, the new circumstances. But the question again, if this leads to new behavior that stays, that's a whole another question. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking going on currently. I mean, of course, we're changing. We're all adapting to our new circumstances. So we do remote learning, we do remote working, we are less traveling, we are more locally traveling, we are more focusing on digital solutions in entertainment, etc. But that's all, I think, behavior we see due to the circumstances we're in. And some of that adoption will stay, of course. But when you look to Daniel Kahneman, for example, I don't know what he is, I think a psychologist, Aljan, Nobel Prize winner, he came with the system 1 and 2, system 1 and system 2 thinking, this model. And what he also argues is that in essence, people prefer not to think. They follow paths of the least resistance. So they're in system 1 thinking. So most people will go back to the old patterns and behavior after Corona. And I'm pretty convinced that that will be the case. But what you could say
that's also what the academics have learned from those previous crises that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That we've been to many crises before, and what we see is that after the crisis, people fall back into their old patterns.
Of course, we had dozens of disruptive events before, which are researched already, and so all the proof, from my perspective at least, all the proof is in the effect that people will go back to their old patterns and behaviors. Generally speaking, of course. I mean, if you find out that remote learning is fine and more practical, maybe our behavior will change a little bit into that area. But when you speak about really deep needs and changing behavior, most behavior will stay. But what you see happening currently, we think is interesting from Transactive is that existing trends that were already there, existing trends in needs and values, are amplified due to Corona. And they were there already, and they will stay for sure. So we know that there are existing trends that are amplified, and I think that's quite interesting to focus upon.